Yes. Good morning, Mr. Jude. This is a hearing regarding the competency of the defendant in file number 24903FY, People versus James Charles Jude. Mr. Jude is charged with a felony home invasion charge and a charge of malicious destruction of personal property over $200 but less than $1,000. He was arrested in May of 2024, and we've yet to even conduct a preliminary examination in this matter. The defendant is here with his lawyer, Rhonda Ives. Prosecuting attorney is represented by attorney Andrew Rogness. Early in the process, the court and counsel asked for a competency evaluation. And that took a while. And there was a competency evaluation conducted by a doctor from the Center for Forensic Psychiatry. See if I can get back into it. We received that report on August 16th from Wisconsin. Get to the bottom signature line. Carissa Carlson, a consulting forensic examiner. And the opinion was not exactly a rousing finding of competency. The parties present, I think it was Mr. Robert and Ms. Ives, stipulated to the report. I'll read the opinion. Was unable to thoroughly assess Mr. Jude's mental condition at the time of the present examination due to his declining to participate in the evaluation. Because of this, I was also unable to directly ask him questions to assess his understanding of the nature and object of the proceedings against him or assess his inability to rationally assist in his defense, his ability to rationally assist in his defense. An opinion on the competency is required. Good morning, Mr. Bland.
Good morning, Judge.
Regardless of the level of participation of Mr. Jude, at the time of the instant evaluation, he was reportedly refusing all psychiatric medication. He was noted by jail staff to, quote, have something wrong with him, end quote, but it also indicated he knows it and sometimes he uses it, end quote. In my opinion, due to the limitation of not being able to directly evaluate Mr. Jude myself, and my understanding of the statute, one has to opine that the presumption of competency. So essentially, because she couldn't connect with him, she's found an opinion of competency. Although the ultimate decision on this matter rests on a judicial determination, it is my opinion that Mr. Jude is competent to stand trial if he so chooses. And I indicate that was in August. We had a hearing on that matter, and Ms. Ives requested a continued independent forensic evaluation. So I did not make a finding of competency or not competency. She obtained a second report, and the court received that. I'm not sure. It was submitted on October 14th. We had some difficulty scheduling this hearing because Ms. Ives was busy with a lot of other matters, but we settled on this morning. So that report was submitted by
Dr. Farhat.
Let me get to the bottom here. Sami, S-A-M-I, Farhat, PhD, licensed forensic psychologist. He's the owner of Foren Psych Evaluations. Mr. Rogness, on behalf of the state, may we stipulate that I may consider that report?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Ms. Ives, on behalf of your client, may I consider that report?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Jude, I haven't seen you in some quite some time, since last spring, probably. Dr. Farhat had a different conclusion than the doctor from the forensic center. One of the questions, the doctor from the forensic centers said you could be competent and assist if you choose to. So there's a concern about whether this is all an act or whether you were suffering from mental illness. And Dr. Farhat says, primary opposition to my opinion was that Mr. Jude was either malingering or simply being uncooperative. The reader may reasonably consider whether his noncompliance and disruptive behaviors in jail and lack of engagement were volitional in nature. Some behaviors may occur in those attempting to feign or portray themselves as mentally ill. I have in fact evaluated many defendants who are malingering. The strategy involved flooding their cells and other things. Based on this information, I considered whether his noncompliance and disruptive behaviors were the result of feigning or volitional uncooperativeness. Dr. Farhat finds that presently you're incompetent and you could benefit from further hospitalization and treatment. And he says there were several factors that led me to that opinion. First, Mr. Jude has adamantly denied having anything wrong with him throughout his incarceration. He informed me he was not crazy and did not require psychotropic medications. Similarly, Mr. Carlson stated that he lost his shit when offered medications at the jail. This would be a counterintuitive malingering strategy, as malingering involves an attempt to portray themselves as mentally ill, or this defendant is denying his mental illness. The doctor also believes that there is substantial likelihood that Mr. Jude will attain competence if he's provided with a course of treatment within the allotted time. Some psychotic individuals are resistant to treatment and will never be restored to a state of competency. I considered whether Mr. Jude was such an individual. As I stated above, the vast majority of psychotic defendants are successfully restored when treated. I'm unaware of any information suggesting that Mr. Jude was in treatment, resistant to treatment, would not respond to treatment efforts. As such, my opinion weighed primarily on what is statistically known about the restoration of psychotic defendants. He will be more likely than not to be someone who could be successfully restored to competence. Mr. Jude, you're stuck in a legal limbo. Your brother is here because he's interested in this. We haven't even really got the case started. The conduct that led to your arrest was bizarre, somewhat, and irrational. You were painting on the house and other things. You were uncooperative really from the get-go at the jail. And so we aren't even in a position where we can discuss a plea offer, such as reducing this to a misdemeanor or that sort of thing, because of the concern as to whether you're competent to assist in your own defense.
Got me in here for a $50 window.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Center for Forensic Psychiatry said, well, we don't know. He's not cooperating, so we find he's competent. Dr. Farhat's opinion is that you're not faking or malingering or manufacturing this mental illness, that you have a mental illness that you don't want to address. Mr. Rognes, you have anything further on behalf of the people?
Your Honor, reviewing Dr. Farhat's report, it's obvious that Mr. Jude is not cooperating with Dr. Farhat. I find it inconceivable he's gonna cooperate with defense counsel unless he gets his current circumstances remedied by whatever's appropriate in these circumstances. It may be a course of medication or something similar, but
I'm not taking no medication.
I tend to suspect that what Dr. Farhat indicates is accurate.
Ms. Eyes, you wish to speak to this?
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Well, again, in meeting with my client, he noted that he is being poisoned still. He said that his hair is falling out and that they're poisoning him, and that's the reason why he's lost so much weight. I mean, it's difficult for me to comprehend. I do not believe for 1 minute that the jail is intentionally poisoning him. But that is his belief at this point. I would indicate that it's been very difficult for me to meet with him because just looking back on my file folder, my very first attempt to meet with him on May 30th, he refused to meet with me. Then on 6/4, back on June 4th, we had I think that was one of the initial court hearing days. At that point, he did talk to me, but he was defensive. He made statements that the victim was not his father. I think I understand it's his stepfather. His statements didn't make any sense as it related to the report. And then again, when I tried to visit him later in June, he refused contact with me. And discussing with his brother, what I think is interesting to note that his brother described behaviors that he noticed, that he was covering up his microwave, his phone, taping up his vents, which is very similar to the behavior that he's doing in the jail. And this was going on prior to his arrest. So I believe something is going on with Mr. Juday that he needs help for. And I mean, I don't know what that is, but I believe Dr. Farhat is probably closer to understanding it than any of us. Thank you.
I read both reports again yesterday and again this morning, and Dr. Farhat's report is very well informed. And the Forensic Center made a finding of competency, I think, because they didn't know what else to do. I find, based on this evidence of both reports, the defendant is presently incompetent to stand trial, but restorable. There is a substantial probability that the defendant is provided with a course of treatment and he will retain competence to proceed further, including trial. So I've signed an order to that effect. Mr. Juday, we need to get this case moving. You're stuck there in a cell. You don't like it. You're right. This had to do with the destruction of your parents' home. It's the kind of thing that could be resolved if we could get to a finding that you're competent. So I'm going to take you back to the jail. You are going to be taken to the State Center for Forensic Psychiatry for further evaluation and treatment, hopefully with the idea that you can be restored to competence. Or you can go with the officer. Thank you for being here, sir.
So all this for a $50 window
Yes, sir.
that you can't prove?
Well, I don't know about that, but we can't even get to first base yet. Thank you.
Can I get your number?
Mr. Juday, I'd simply say I hope you cooperate with the doctors so we can get this case to a completion. Thank you, Ms. Arias.
Thank you.